Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the National Railway Museum in York, a place where time seems to pause for a while. The heartbeat of Britain's transport story still echoes beneath vast iron rafters. This is where engineering becomes memory and memory becomes inspiration. Every locomotive, every polished handle and painted crest carries the weight of journeys once made, journeys that shape towns, families and entire generations. The first steps into the museum feel like a lit-through stepping through time. The air changes. You sense the hum of history. There under the great arched roof, you can almost hear the whisper of steam and the faint clang of tools from a distant workshop. For many visitors this is more than a collection of engines. It's a celebration of movement, progress, discovery, and the idea that travel connects more than places, it connects people. York has always been a city of journeys. Its station, once among the largest in the world, symbolised Victorian ambition. Trains from here linked the north to London, Scotland and the coast. It feels fitting that the story of Britain's railway should find its home right here, at the heart of the network that helped create it. The museum gathers together centuries of innovation, from the earliest puffing giants of the 1800s to the sleek precision and modern electric trains and high-speed designs. The collection tells a story of courage and craft. It's a reminder that engineering is not only about the metal, it's about imagination. As you wander the halls, the size of these machines take your breath away. They're powerful yet graceful, monumental yet intricate. You find yourself drawn to details, the brass fittings, the paintwork, the typography of the names that once thunders along the rails. Each one speaks of pride. The museum invites you to slow down, to stand quietly beside the engines that once pulled thousands of passengers through wind, rain and snow. You look at the curves of the boiler, the geometry of the wheels and the arteries in something built purely for function. You can start to realise that beauty can live in industry too. There's something hypnotic about trains. Even standing still, they suggest motion. They remind us that every journey begins with a moment of anticipation. The sound of a whistle, a cloud of steam, and that deep rumbles as the wheels begin to turn. In the 19th century these sounds changed the world. They brought speed where there had been distance, and opportunity where there had been isolation. The railway stitched the fabric of Britain together, coast to coast, village to city, factory to port. And behind every track laid and every engine built were thousands of ordinary people, working with extraordinary skills. The museum honours them all, the drivers, the firemen, the engineers, the designers, the clerks who kept timetables exact to the minute. Together they built something that became part of daily life around the world. Wandering here you feel that legacy. There's an unmistakable smell of old iron and oil. The cool echo of footsteps across the floor. Visitors speak in low tones, partly out of respect, partly out of awe. Children look up wide-eyed at the wheels taller than themselves, while older visitors nod knowingly, remember when these giants still roamed the rails. The displays are arranged like a chapter of a living book. One area tells of early experiments, fragile-looking engines with tall chimneys and open cabs, their simplicity hiding the brilliance of their innovation. Another area celebrates the golden age of steam, where locomotions were national icons. Railway posters promised holidays by the sea or adventures in the countryside. Everywhere turn there's contrast. Steam beside diesel, tradition beside innovation. Hand painted craftsmanship behind computer design precision. The past and future face each other across the museum floor. The light filters through the high windows, catching the edges of metal and turning everything silver and gold. How it shifts as the day moves on, as the railways once carried people through changing landscapes and times of day. The National Railway Museum is also about scale, the vastness of ambition. It reminds us that Victorians built big because they dreamed big. Stations were cathedrals, bridges were monuments, and locomotives were statements of national confidence. To stand among them now, you can feel that same sense of wonder. Every component had a purpose. Pipes, rods, valves and bolts, each working together in perfect timing. It's the sound of precision turned into power. And while we often take travel for granted today, you can see the sense of how revolutionary it once was, to move at such speed across such distances. The museum story isn't only about machines, it's about people and time. There are photographs of workers, their hands blackened by coal dust, their faces proud and tied in equal measure. There are diaries, uniforms, letters and tools, reminders that progress was built by human effort, not magic. You can imagine those long shifts in these depots, the hiss of cooling metal, the rhythm of maintenance through the night. The line between art and labour blurs when the results are this beautiful. Many visitors come for nostalgia, for the romance of steam, the memory of childhood holidays, the sound of a platform bustling with energy. That nostalgia is gentle, not sentimental. It's an appreciation of craft, of simpler journeys, of watching the countryside roll by without having to rush. For children today, the museum offers something else, curiosity. Engines become puzzles to understand, stories to unlock. It's a place where science becomes tangible. Physics, design, teamwork, all wrapped in a sense of discovery. There's an entire section dedicated to the evolution of passion to comfort. You might glance through the window of an ordinary carriage, rich with polished wood and patterned fabric, then turn to see the clean lines of a high-speed modern train. The difference tells its own stories, the way travel has mirrored social change. In one corner stands the grandeur of a royal train, carriages once reserved for kings and queens, furnished like palaces on wheels. They speak of status and ceremony, but also of an age when the railway was a symbol of being modern and one of national pride. Elsewhere you will find the humble workhorses, freight engines, postal carriages and maintenance vehicles. They may lack glamour, but they carried the lifeblood of the country, letters, goods, and the quiet efficiency of everyday life. The museum balances both sides perfectly, luxury and labour, ambition and routine. Each depends on the other. York itself forms part of the experience. Step outside and the tracks that curve past the museum still hum with that activity today. Modern electric trains glide by, quieter, faster, smoother, yet following the same route carved out more than a century ago. The past and present coexist, separated only by a pane of glass. Back inside, light shifts across the engines as clouds pass overhead. Their polished surfaces reflect fragments of movement, footsteps, camera flashes, the turn of a head. Even in stillness, the space feels alive. The museum design encourages exploration. No fixed route, no rush, just space to wander through and pause. You might circle the same locomotive twice, noticing something new each time. A manufacturer's plate, a dent in the metal, a hand-painted detail on a buffer beam. It's the small things that give these giants personality. Every detail invites reflection on the human side of engineering. Someone once tightened that bolt, painted that line, stoked that firebox. Someone heard that engine breathe life for the first time, and now decades later, others stand and listen to the silence and the imagining of what those sounds would have been like. That's the quiet magic of the National Railway Museum. It transforms industry into poetry without saying a word. It lets you sense, rather than see, how much these machines meant to the people who built and used them. As you move deeper into the museum, you pass display boards describing routes and records, speed trails, world first records, heroic journeys. But even these feats are framed by human stories. The determination to push a little faster, climb a little higher, or to connect one more town to another. Progress built mile by mile, driven by curiosity and courage. Here history isn't behind glass, it's around you. The floor trembles faintly when a rail train passes on the nearby main line, a subtle reminder that the story continues beyond the museum walls. It's not just a past on display, it's a living legacy still in motion. And through all of it there's York, a city whose rhythm has always been tied to the rails. The sound of trains is part of its soundtrack. The sight of carriages rolling by, part of its everyday charm. Visitors who arrive by train step into history the moment they step onto the platforms. Inside the museum, that continuity feels complete. You can trace a line from the earliest experiments to today's innovations, from soot-covered engines to software designers, guiding modern locomotives by computer. The story of the railway is a story of adaptation. Every exhibit here is evidence of a moment when someone imagined something better, a stronger boiler, a lighter chassis, or a smoother ride. In that sense, the museum isn't just about what's been achieved, it's about what can still be imagined. And as you walk along these giants, you feel part of the same spirit of invention, because even though the engines rest now, their story keeps moving, carried forward by every visitor who walks these halls and leaves inspired. As you wander deeper into the National Railway Museum, a theme begins to emerge. It isn't simply a place about machines, it's a place about imagination. Every locomotive, every carriage, every display began with an idea. The thought that we could move faster, travel further, and connect more completely than ever before. You begin to notice how the collection reflects the passing of time. The early engines, proud and upright, almost delicate in their design, contrast with the later, more powerful giants, broader, heavier, built for endurance rather than experimentation. Each generation of engineers left their signature, and walking through the museum is like reading their handwriting across the years. The sense of progress is unmistakable. Here the world's first steam locomotive shares space with streamlined masterpieces that once broke records. It's an evolution you can see, not just in technology but in confidence. The Victorians believed the railway could conquer time itself, and for a while it almost did. There's something inspiring about that boldness, that people didn't know yet what was possible, but they tried anyway, often at risk, sometimes at great cost. The rails they laid, the engines they built, shaped not only transport but culture. They gave Britain its pulse. The museum tells that story, through not only words alone, but through presence. Standing beside a locomotive that weighs over 100 tons, you can feel its mass, even in its silence. You can imagine it's alive, the sound, the movement, the heat. And you realise how extraordinary it is that human beings made this happen, with little more than steel, coal, and some willpower. In another part of the museum, the focus shifts from industry to elegance. Carriages once built for long-distance comfort are displayed like rooms, polished wood, soft seating, glass and brass. They speak of an age when travel was something to be dressed for, when journeys were as much about the experience as the destination. You can picture the soft flicker of oil lamps, the quiet clatter of wheels, and the distant conversations of passengers heading north or south, watching the landscape change outside. Even without the movement, the museum manages to recreate that sense of a journey. There are moments here when nostalgia feels almost tangible. It might be the smell of old leather, the faint echo of footsteps, or simply the way the light reflects on the curved metal. Every visitor brings their own memories, perhaps the first ride on a train, a long commute, or even a favourite seat by the window. The museum becomes a mirror for those personal stories. At the same time, it never feels frozen in the past. Modern design sits comfortably alongside heritage. You'll find exhibits about high-speed rail, renewable power, and future transport, proof that innovation didn't stop with steam. If any, the spirit of innovation is stronger than ever. It's fascinating how these contrasts coexist. Riveted steel besides carbon fibre, gauges beside digital screens. Each era building on the lessons of the last. That's the quiet message of this place. Progress isn't about leaving the past behind, but learning from it. Many of the museums display honour the people who worked behind the railways, not the famous names, but the countless individuals who made it work. Photographs show signalmen in tiny wooden boxes, ticket clerks at busy counters, porters carrying luggage through the smoke of arriving trains. They were the heartbeat of a system that moved millions of people every single day. In one gallery, you'll find the tools of the trade, wrenches, lamps, telegraphs and uniforms, simple objects, yet each one tells a story of precision and pride. The railway demanded reliability, and the people who worked in it delivered that through generations. York's role in this story is profound. The city was once home to major depots and workshops where locomotives were repaired and rebuilt. Families grew around the railway. Careers lasted decades. It was more than employment, it was identity. That connection remains. Even today, many of the museum's volunteers are retired railway workers. They speak about engines as if they were all friends, each with its own quirks, strength and temperament. Their knowledge adds warmth to the exhibits, turning static displays into living memories. There's a particular moment that many visitors experience here, a pause beside one of the great steam locomotives, realising the sheer craftsmanship involved, every rivet placed by hand, every curve shaped with intention. In a world of mass production, that level of care almost feels sacred. You start to understand why so many enthusiasts dedicate their lives to restoration. To keeping these giants alive is to preserve a piece of collective heritage, something that speaks of endurance, pride and patience. Across the museum, plaques and stories highlight not just the achievement but the challenges faced, accidents, design failures, moments when ambition outpaced understanding. They remind us that progress often carries risk, and that courage sometimes means trying again after failure. In a quieter corner, you may find yourself drawn to the artwork. Old railway posters, rich with colour and optimism. Scenes of seaside holidays, mountain adventures, city skylines, all promoting escaping by train. These weren't just advertisements, they were invitations to dream. Today they capture the optimism of the era, that believed the future would always arrive by rail. And perhaps the optimism is still what lingers here most strongly. Even after decades of change, the railway still holds a special place in British life. It represents connection, continuity, and care for the shared history. No other mode of transport inspires such affection. The museum's galleries weave that emotion gently. They guide you from the technical to the human, from pistons to passengers, from design to destiny. It's impossible not to be drawn by the sheer depth of the story. There's also a global dimension here. Britain's railways inspired the world, exporting technology, expertise and enthusiasm to every continent. The locomotives built here in York and Doncaster once ran in India, Africa, Australia and beyond. The museum preserves that international legacy too, showing how the nation's vision changed the map of the world. At times the collection feels almost like a time machine. You can trace a line through decades, from black and white photography to colour, from steam to smoke to the electric hum. Every display marks a step in a journey which is still unfolding to this day. At the centre of one hall stands a locomotive so vast it almost defies comprehension, a symbol of how far ambition can go. People are gathered around it in quiet admiration, cameras ready, eyes wide. It's not just a machine, it's a monument to what humans can achieve when they believe in progress. The museum isn't only about looking back, it's about looking around. Every visitor becomes part of the story, their footsteps echoing among engines once heard by millions. Children's laughter mixes with the hum of the air conditioning, the creak of all floors, the faint rhythm of passing trains outside. It's the sound of life continuing, laid upon history. You might take a moment to sit on one of the benches, scattered through the museum. From here you can watch the slow movement of people, the curious, the nostalgic, the simply awed. It's almost like watching time flow at its own pace. That's one of the things the museum does best. It invites stillness. It encourages reflection in a world that rarely stops. You don't rush through it, you drift. And as you drift, you begin to think not just about the trains, but about change itself. Every generation has its engines, literal or metaphorical, that carry it forward. For the Victorians it was steam. For us perhaps it's technology or communication. The forms differ, but the spirit remains the same. The need to move, to explore, to understand. The museum in its quiet way celebrates that human drive. It shows how progress can be beautiful, how memory can inspire innovation. Every visitor leaves with a slightly different sense of what it means but almost everyone leaves moved. You might imagine the sound of departure, a slow build, the deep breath of an engine before motion. It's almost cinematic. In a way, memory fills in what the ears can't hear, and the museum gives you that gift, the ability to imagine the past alive again. Near the end of the central hall, a display highlights the artistry of engineering, blueprint sketches, early prototypes. They reveal how creativity and mathematics work hand in hand. For every locomotive on display, there were months of years thought, refinement and testing. Behind every gleaming surface lies 1,000 small decisions made by unseen hands. There's humanity in that. The railway wasn't the work of one genius, but many minds, builders, fitters, designers and dreamers. Their combined efforts created something that outlived them all. That's what gives the National Railway Museum its depth. It's not just a shrine to history, it's a tribute to collaboration. It reminds us that progress is rarely solitary. It's shared, passed along, carried forward. As the afternoon light softens, the mood inside changes. The reflections on metal grow warmer, the shadows stretch across the floor. Visitors linger a little longer, reluctant to leave. The day feels slow here, as if the clocks themselves respect the rhythm of the rails. Perhaps that's the final layer of the experience, learning to slow down, to move at the pace of appreciation, to notice not only what was built, but what it meant. The National Railway Museum captures that perfectly. It's both vast and intimate, grand yet personal. It holds history, but never feels trapped by it. Instead, it invites everyone to find their own connection, whether through curiosity, memory, or simple admiration. For many, that connection lingers long after leaving. Back in the streets of York, you hear the faint echoes of engines in your mind. You find yourself glancing towards the railway station, half expecting a plume of steam to rise above the rooftops. And then you realise that the railway isn't just part of Britain's history, it's part of its imagination. As the light fades, the National Railway Museum settles into a quieter rhythm. Engines that once roared with power now rest in near silence, the metal surfaces glowing softly under the evening light. Visitors drift away, voices lowered, footsteps gentler, as though the space itself encourages reflection. There's a calm satisfaction that comes to the end of a visit here, the feeling of having stepped back in time, and how progress once felt new. You realise that the story told inside these walls isn't just about machines or movement, it's about people, perseverance and imagination. For more than 2 centuries, the railways have shaped how we see the world. It changed our sense of distance, connected towns and families, brought work, trade and adventure within reach. Even now, the rhythm of the rails still holds something deeply human. That sense of going somewhere with purpose, of possibility. The museum captures all of that without ever needing to say it out loud. It allows visitors to feel it, the scale of the locomotives, the craftsmanship of the details, and the gentle hum of memory that fills the air. It's a reminder that every generation leaves behind its own kind of legacy. The people who built these engines could never imagine that one day they'd stand in a museum, admired not just for power but for beauty. And yet that's what time does. It turns work into heritage, and heritage into inspiration. For the modern visitor, that inspiration takes many forms. Some leave thinking about engineering, the skill, the precision, the brilliance of design. Others leave thinking about the journeys, the faces, the landscapes, the stories carried by every mile of track. And some simply leave grateful that places like this exist to keep memories alive. Outside, the modern railway still hums. Electric trains glide past, efficient and fast, heading for Leeds or London or the coast. Each one a descendant of the engines inside, different in form but carrying the same purpose. The line between past and present blurs. You realise that the railway story is far from over. If anything, it's still being written. With every new design, every sustainable project, every improvement in speed or comfort, the same spirit continues, the drive to move forward, to connect, to explore. And perhaps that's what makes this museum so special. It doesn't separate the past from the present. It shows how one flows into another. It reminds us that progress isn't something that happens once. It's something that keeps happening, carried by those who care enough to keep it moving. The museum itself is like a kind of station, not one where trains depart, but one where memories arrive, each visitor stepping into a platform of discovery, each leaving with something personal. Some take away curiosity, others nostalgia, but everyone takes away a piece of the story. There's a phrase often associated with the railways: all change please. It's a simple announcement, yet it feels profound here, because the change is the essence of the railways, and of life. Tracks shift, trains evolve, routes expand, and time keeps rolling forward. What remains constant is the spirit of journey, that sense of wonder that comes with it. The National Railway Museum honours that beautifully. It celebrates movement, but it also celebrates pause, the moments between departures, the quiet reflection that comes after arrival. It reminds us that travel isn't just about reaching somewhere, it's about what we notice along the way. As you take one last look around, the engines seem almost to breathe in the fading light. Paint gleams, brass fittings catch the glow, and everything still feels alive. You sense the ghost of the journey's past, not haunting but comforting. The rhythm of time steady and kind. For York, this museum is more than an attraction. It's part of the city's heart, a bridge between generations, linking local heritage with national memory. It carries pride, not grandeur, but in its continuity. Just as trains once arrived and departed from the city carrying the lifeblood of the nation, so now visitors arrive carrying curiosity and leave carrying connections to the past and the future. There's something timeless about the idea of a railway. It speaks to the explorer in all of us, that quiet urge to see what lies beyond the horizon. And in that sense, this museum isn't just about the past. It's about what it means to keep moving, to keep learning, to keep imagining. The story of the railway is a story of possibilities. The belief that barriers can be crossed, distances shortened, and lives connected through design and determination. And when you stand here, surrounded by physical evidence of that belief, it's impossible not to feel inspired. You begin to think about your own journeys, the ones taken, the ones still to come, the stations you've passed through, the people you've met, the quiet moments spent watching landscapes roll through a train window. In a way, the museum rekindles that sense of gratitude for the simple act of travelling. Perhaps that's its greatest gift, perspective. It's helped you to see how far we've come, not just in technology, but in understanding what truly connects us. The railway did more to move people. It brought them closer in spirit. It showed us that progress is something shared. So as the day ends, the museum's great doors close once more. The engines rest, the lights dim, the silence returns. Not the silence of emptiness, but that of peace. Outside, the city of York carries on, its own rhythm blending with the faint sound of trains. For those who have wandered these halls, the memory lingers. The sound of steam imagined, the shrine of metal remembered, the feeling of walking through living history. The National Railway Museum leaves you with a quiet sense of awe. Not loud, not showy, just steady, lasting appreciation. Because in the end, the story of the railways is our story too. It's about ambition and care, movement and meaning, and the endless desire to see what lies ahead. Thank you for joining me on this calm wander through the National Railway Museum in York, a place where the past still breathes and the future still inspires. Until next time, take care, travel safely and keep exploring. Once again, thanks for watching. Please like and share and consider subscribing, as it will help the channel to grow. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you on the next one. Please enjoy the remaining footage.